Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Unplugged Woodworkings podcast. So what have I been up to? I have been finishing up on the Chinese inspired table. I started this the last time before I went away. It was it was kind of annoying us because I made some mistakes. I had to cut the legs. It was a bit of a faff on. Obviously, I had to change some of the angles in the joints and stuff. So I stepped away from that for a little bit. Obviously, when I come back, I finished the shelving unit off, which I mentioned last podcast, I think. Got the finish on that, got that out to the customer. She lived locally, or rather her and her partner lived there locally. They were quite happy with that, so obviously I was happy with that. So I have also just been editing the video for the Chinese inspired table, so that should be getting released within the next couple of days. Tonight, just before I'm recording this, I did actually start with the plans on the Chinese inspired table. I have had somebody mention the other day on Instagram, they were actually asking for plans for the shelving unit. I didn't do any plans for the shelving unit, but I have had people in the past asking us for plans for different things. I haven't really bothered to do them, so I'm going to try and make it a regular thing that when I make something, I'm going to, do plans and such. Ironically, when I do build things, I tend not to post the finished article a lot. Sometimes I'll do stuff and I'll go all the way through the build process, do the videos on Instagram. I'll do like little reels on Instagram or whatever else, and then I just don't bother posting like the final product. So I'm going to kind of start doing that a little bit. I think I'm maybe kind of going too much into the processes, and then I'm I'm not showing the end product, if you like. So I think that could be confusing. A lot of people are like, people like kind of, well, it's great you're showing what you're doing, but you're not showing what you're doing it for. So I'm going to make more of an effort to do that. So obviously that's where the plans will be coming in, obviously, because I have had people asking us on and off for plans for different things I've done. So I will be selling these. These are only going to be like maybe £1, £2. So it's not a lot of money in the big scheme of things. I probably will end up giving a few of them away as well in the future, most probably. I just want to say a good big thank you to Burnisher Software Engineering. The guys there, or the guy there, I'm not too sure who it was, but they sent us a very nice donation for to get myself quite a few cups of coffee. So thank you very much for that. And they were basically left a little note there thanking us for the Roman workbench videos I've put up on YouTube. So again, thank you very much for that, really appreciate it. So what impressed me this week? So I did actually have something I was going to mention, and literally just before I recorded this, or rather just before I started recording this episode, I quickly went on Instagram, and like the first like picture that popped up in my feed was from Dave the Bodger, and I'll leave a link to this post. And as what it was, or at least what I thought it was at first glance, I thought it was a very, very old Welsh stick chair. Some of the earlier forms, the ones that have been around for a very long time, if you've ever seen any examples of them, or if you look for some very old examples, you'll see quite a few of them have like warped over the years. So some of them will be a bit twisted and overly bent, and so on and so forth. So obviously first glance, that's what I thought it was, but obviously I started examining the picture, and it's actually it's really good how they've put it together. They've actually used the natural curvature in the actual wood itself, you know, so it looks like some of it's been done from branches. I'm gonna kind of go there with that. I'm not 100% because obviously I haven't had a lot of experience in green woodworking or any sort of woodworking like that, but that's what it looks like. I think it did mention in the description that he thought it was the same, or rather it might have been listed as the same. With Dave the Bodger, he wasn't sure who the maker was, so I don't know who the maker was. So one of the other peculiar things I seen in the chair was that rather than them being conical tenons, these are actually, the legs are actually pegged through the side of the legs and into the seat. So that's a bit unusual. I don't think I've ever seen like a chair like it. It's actually very worth going to have a look at. It looks quite rustic and charming, quite like pretty in that sort of sense. You know, I think if you were to make one and you had it in your home, I think it would be like, you know, the centre of attention when anyone come to your house, anyone visited, you know, it's like kind of just got that wow factor about it. The seat was nicely saddled out as well. Just overall, it was just like a really nice, you know, like chair. Someone's taken a long time to do this. You know, it looks like they've put a lot of hours into it. So yeah, I'm going to leave a link for that if you want to go and check that out. Really pretty chair, really nice. So while I'm at it, I'll say a thank you to Andreas. Andreas sent us a lovely email, very brief but was still really nice. Basically thanking us, you know, for the Roman workbench work I've been doing for however long I've been doing it. And you know, he was just basically saying that he's basically just built one. Obviously himself, his wife and his children love it, and it's kind of become like an everyday part of the furniture, if you will. So he even said that he'd reduced the size of the bench a little bit lower than what I recommend, just so his 10-month-old baby can like kind of get on top of it or stand at the side of it, you know. So I thought that was pretty funny, pretty ironic in a way. But I will say that kids absolutely love the Roman workbench. I have you know, a couple of nieces and a couple of nephews, and the niece, one niece in particular and one of the nephews in particular, they absolutely loved it. There was like a couple of times where I literally showed them a peg, I got a hammer or a mallet roller, and I hit the peg through the dog hole, you know, out the other side, and these were like relatively loose pegs, you know, so obviously they could pass through. And I'm not kidding you, they were there for hours at a time, you know, just like tapping these pegs through. So if you've got young children, give it a try, it'll keep them happy for hours. Something else I wanted to mention before I get on to today's topic is I would really appreciate it if people would start sending us in some suggestions for topics to talk about, or even just some questions, you know. Even if I got a handful of questions, I could, you know, basically answer those. As anyone knows who listens to us on a regular basis knows, I haven't been consistent lately, and that's due to us having to go away working, basically to keep a roof over my head, basically. So if I don't have any ideas before I go away, I basically can't record pre-record like episodes, so it would be a massive help, if you could send us an email, unpluggedwoodworking@gmail.com, or send us a message on Instagram or Facebook, whatever. I would really appreciate it. And then for those of you that like to listen to us every week, I should be able to do the pre-recordings and keep on top of the podcast. So yeah, any help would be appreciated. So today I'm going to talk about card scrapers. So I was going to talk about them a couple of weeks ago, but obviously I didn't get round to it, and I totally forgot all about it and whatever else, and so on and so forth. So I had quite a lot of interest. I posted a video. This was like a 15-second reel on Instagram. I posted it, and it got like over. It was like somewhere in the region of like 6,500 views and so many interactions. It's like the best sort of like video sort of thing on any platform I've ever done. It's like just me using a card scrape, and there was like a lot, there's been a lot of comments and messages and whatever else, so I thought I would do this little episode just on that, just talking about them. So there is some different types. I think typically there is a little bit of confusion between them. There is a cabinet scraper, and a cabinet scraper is different to a card scraper. So for those of you that don't know, a cabinet scraper typically has some sort of a body. There is different patterns. The pattern I have is I think it's a number 80 record, and this is kind of reminiscent of a spoke shave, if you will. It's kind of how the handles are shaped either side. It's for me anyway. It's reminiscent of a spoke shave. You can, however, get like a typical plain body, and on some of these plain bodies, same again, there's different patterns. On these plain bodies, you can actually alter the angle on some of them. I don't think you can do that on all of them, but on some of them you can actually alter the angle of the card scraper, which, that can be a bit of a... sorry, not the card scraper, the cabinet scraper, which can be a bit of a godsend sometimes, depending on how it's sharpened, and there's other factors. So your typical card scraper, there is like a few different types, and typically the one I use, just to give people some preference or some idea what I'm talking about, if you can imagine two credit cards end on end, that's near enough the size what I use. I think it is slightly a little bit bigger, but just to give you like a bit of an idea, that's kind of, it's in the ballpark, if you will. The one I use day in and day out, that's like 0.45 millimeters, so that is quite thin. It's able to flex quite easily. There is obviously different types. There's different thicknesses or gauges of card scrapers. And it also depends if you've made it or if you're buying them. Even if you're buying them, there's you can actually get different gauges anyway. So another card scraper that I have would be the one like a curved one. This has kind of got like a French curve. I've heard it being referred to as a French curve or a swan neck card scraper. So these are pretty handy. I don't tend to use it a lot, but they are handy. Kind of one end will be like really fat, and then the other end goes quite slim. Obviously you've got the French curve. These typically, for me, what I use them for typically is finishing up on a seat. if I've used it, if I've used the, what's the word I'm looking for here, the saddle technique, if I've saddled a seat, just say maybe in a Welsh stick chair or whatever, something like that, that's when I'll start to use a curved one. Obviously, if you can't really, certain places you can't really get it the straight card scraper in, so obviously you've just got to use the curved one. So they're quite good for that, and that's what I typically, or rather all I tend to use it for, to be honest. They are quite good for mouldings as well. If you've got some sort of curved moulding, some like a concave moulding, they are quite good. The thinner part is quite good to go into anything like that. There is also what's known as a chair devil. There's different names for these, and typically a chair devil would be used to shape the spindles for the chair. These could be used even on the legs, so obviously you would have to have different size ones of these. And again, for anyone that doesn't know, typically a chair devil will it could actually just be a regular card scraper, and you've actually just took a bit of a semicircle out of one edge. Obviously it's not going to be a full semicircle, it'll just be like a bit of a shallow one. Obviously, like I've just said, there will be different depths, and there will be different widths of these, just depending on what you're using it for. I kind of have used one in the past. I haven't a clue where it went. So, but typically for me, if I'm doing any sort of chair work or for the spindles, I just tend to use my straight one. The straight one does do a good job, but obviously if you were to do or all that take the time to make a chair devil, obviously it's going to speed it up a little bit, and you're going to get more consistent results. I think just recently, I say recently, within the last however many years, this is, to my knowledge, be very wrong, so if I am wrong, please correct us in the comments on any social media where I do post this. There's such a tool called what's it called again? It's called a spoke scraper. Yes, I think I've got that right. A spoke scraper, sorry. So imagine a spoke shave, but instead of the blade in it, it's got a scraper, and it's pretty much, in the years, I believe there is curved ones, and there is, just your regular straight ones as well. So with this, there is actually another type of scraper that's put into a body, and this is kind of for chair making, and it's kind of a similar sort of setup. I've just recently seen the one for the chairs. It's somebody who I follow. I kind of think who it is. There is quite a few chair makers I follow on Instagram, so I couldn't really name the person, although I do believe it's probably the same guy who I bought a Travisher off some years ago. Again, I can't remember what the guy's called. No, his name eludes me at the moment. But he makes some quite nice tools for chair making. Obviously, that's why I bought a Travisher from him. So, making them, personally, I have made them in the past. I don't know if I would make any in the future. I'm not going to say no, and I'm not going to say yes. I mean, for me, it kind of depends. If you have got some sort of tools, power tools or whatever, or you've got the means to cut steel, rather than just with a hacksaw, and stuff like that, it's because it's going to take you a while, to cut to cut some steel up for that sort of thing. I mean, at the moment, I've just actually received 2 Japanese blades for my Ryobi saws. So I got like a regular what's the word I'm looking for here? Just a general use one, and then I got one that's I forget the name of these as well. You know, I'm terrible. Anyway, I got another one that's kind of more for cabinetry work. That's probably my favourite, because obviously when you're cutting joints with that, you get really nice fine you know, shoulder lines and stuff. And if my sawing on that particular joint is nice, you know, nice and straight, I sometimes don't even have to bother you know, touching the shoulders up with a chisel, which is always good. So, as I said, I do have a spare blade, and it's blunt. It's well used. I can't remember the last. Sorry, I can't remember when I bought the thing, but it's it's well used. Trust us, it's very, very well used. It was dying to death basically. So that particular blade is, I think that's kind of somewhere in the region of 0.5 millimeters. So that is typically quite a good thickness for it, or rather for a card scraper. So me personally, if I was going to make one, I wouldn't do it unplugged. I don't like working metal unplugged. It just takes too long. You know, cutting steel, things like that. I just wouldn't do it with a hacksaw. Anything to do with metal unplugged, I avoid it like the plague. And I will 110% go for some sort of, you know, like a power tool. In the past, when I've made these, they're really simple to make. Get your rectangle the size you want it, mark it out, and get a grinder and cut it out with a grinder. That's how I've done it in the past. Nice, simple, quick, you know, no frills, but it gets the job done, you know, quickly. Obviously, just clamp it down to the bench. You know, you've got to move the clamps a couple of times as you're doing it. So that's how I would do that. Basically, round off the corners. Finish up with a file, you know, a bit of a coarse file. That'll get your edges nice and straight for you if there's any discrepancies when you've been cutting it with a grinder. Again, it shouldn't take you too long to get the edges nice and straight. I cannot see you veering off too much when you're using a grinder. That is, unless you're brand new to a grinder. So that could be debatable depending on your skill level with a grinder. And then obviously you just want to sharpen it. I have actually done a video on this. I've done a video on the cabinet scraper, and I've done a video on a card scraper. It's super simple the way I sharpen them. There's, you know, it's just no frills, no jigs or anything like that. It's, you know, I basically just use a carbon steel burnisher, and I sharpen it freehand. You know, I'm not really going to get into that too much, because obviously there's a video. Go on to my YouTube channel. You know, it's fully explained on there. It's super simple. So how I used to do them, I think the first time when I did do it, I was like kind of using, what was I using again? I think I made some sort of little jig, you know, and this was kind of probably someone I'd watched on YouTube, you know, and they were doing all weird, wonderful things. I've watched quite a few videos of people doing, like, you know, weird and wonderful, like, things with card scrapers and, you know, getting them sharp and whatever else. But I mean, when I compare their results to the results I get now, you know, I seem to be getting really good results, you know, so I've never seen anyone sharpen a card scraper how I sharpen them. I don't even know why I started doing it for, to be honest. I've got no idea. More than likely it's probably because I was being lazy. Probably. But as it happens, it just works out nice and easy. What I did start doing, kind of after I was using all these weird and wonderful jigs and techniques, to basically just get a good edge on it. What I started doing was I started putting it in the vise, but before I put it in the vise, I was getting my wooden ruler. The wooden rulers, the ones that have got hinges on them, the kind of, I think they're about, is it 8 inches, 7 inches, something like that. I can't remember what they fold out. They start at say 6 or 7 inches, just for argument's sake, and these will fold out basically to 36 inches. So I had one of those rulers. Obviously I've still got the ruler, and what I would do, I would sandwich the card scraper in between the ruler and then put it in my vise when I was still using the tall workbench. It's still actually there. It's the bench is round at my mother's house, as it happens, with the vise on it. I would just put it in the vise, tighten it up, and that's basically how I would burnish it. I would obviously, if I was putting a new edge on it, I would file it that way, then I would burnish it that way. So that was quite good, because one of the problems with kind of putting it in a vise, because if you look at a lot of woodworkers will put it in the vise. The problem with that being, when you do put it in the vise, you can actually compress the burr that you've just created, because basically when you're sharpening a card scraper, you're basically creating a burr or a hook type of sort of edge on it. So you can actually compress that a little bit, and you kind of over hooking it, if that makes sense what I'm saying. I don't know if I'm explaining this right. So that's why I started doing that. And I've done that for quite some time, and don't get us wrong, I did get some good results. But the way I do it now, it's literally done. It's minutes to do it. And I don't think I'll change now. Like I say, it's just so quick, it's so easy. There's no jigs, there's no vise, no clamps. I literally pick the thing up and I'm away. I mean, another thing, what a lot of people don't understand or don't realise, every time you sharpen a card scraper, you don't have to use a file. So basically, you'll get to a point where for argument's sake, let's just say the first time you do this, you will have to use a file to get a nice straight edge and take any old burr off it. And obviously then you'll use your burnisher, and then you'll basically sharpen it, create the burr or all of the hooks either side. So when it starts getting dull, the edge, there's a lot of people that think you've got to go back to the file and remove the existing burr and then start all over again. Well, you don't actually have to do that. Again, this is dependent. I've done this, it depends. It's kind of, I've done this up to 4 and 5 times. It varies every time. Sometimes you'll do it and it just doesn't work. It's a bit of a hard one to describe, but you'll kind of get the feel for it, and you'll know when you have to take the full burr off and basically file it down. But basically, when it does get dull, rather than take it straight to the file, take it to the edge, lie flat on your bench. Obviously, this is the way I do it. So, if you don't understand what I'm saying, when you want to learn how I do it, obviously, go on my YouTube channel and check the video out. So basically, I lie it on the bench, face down, and I'll remove the burr from the sides. I'll basically get the burnisher, and I'm basically just, if you can imagine, I'm kind of combing or rolling the burr, or the hook if you will, back onto the edge, if that makes sense. So that would be on the very edge of I'm kind of from the face, I'm rolling it onto the very edge, so that's where it would get sharp. So if you can imagine, if it was sharp, and I put it across my hand, that would cut us, if that kind of makes sense. So that's kind of where I want the burr. Obviously I do that on the other side, turn the whole thing round and do it on the other edge. So basically with a card scraper, you're getting two edges. You don't just sharpen one edge, you'll sharpen the two edges. So once that's done, obviously you just start get the card scraper like roughly 90 degrees, and start burnishing the very edge, and as I said, a lot of people don't realise you can do that. And it's the same again, as I said before, I've done that 4 and 5 times. I normally always get at least 3 times. I think I could be wrong with that, but I don't think it's any less than that. It's 110% at least twice. I'm almost sure it's 3 times, but obviously you're saving your time, and at the end of the day you're saving, or rather you're prolonging the life of the card scraper. Because obviously if you're filing it every time, you're removing some of the steel every time, so it is gonna get like shorter and shorter every time you do it. So that's something just to bear in mind. It's going to save you a little bit of time. I've talked about this before when I'm sharpening anything, whether it be a chisel or a plain blade. I just like to get it done and then get back to work. I don't like to be spending half an hour or an hour sharpening things up. I just don't like to do that. If you like to do that, obviously that's totally fine for you. Obviously some people take great pride in sharpening the tools. The people that are into the Japanese planes and whatnot, they spend a long time, and they get beautiful edges, and I'm sure everyone's seen some of the shavings they get. You can basically pick these shavings up and you can see straight through them. That's how sharp they get them. So, but that's not for me. I just like to get it done and dusted and get back to work. So I'm going to finish up with the cons of them, because here's cons. So with all good things there is bad things. So probably the worst thing about them is the heat that's transferred from using them. So for anyone that hasn't used them, when you start using them, you're more than likely going to get 2 blisters on your thumb. I would happily bet my house on that, to be honest with you. I get them on a regular basis, although I am getting a little bit better. Basically, when you're pushing the card scraper through the material, there's friction created. The friction creates heat. And obviously with it being steel, it transfers the heat, and radiates the heat all across the edge quite well. And the heat's enough for you to actually get blisters, heat blisters on your thumbs. I don't know how many I've had just silly amounts over the years. But as I said, I am getting better, so the thing for you to do, or rather the thing what I find is better for me to do, is I might have maybe 2 or 3 strokes, and then I'll basically flip the whole thing around so that the edge that's just been hitting scraping the surface of the material is flipped up and it's pointing towards my head, if that makes sense. And then I'll have 2 or 3 strokes that way and just swap it again. obviously this is done in quick, what's the word I'm looking for? Repetitive. Basically, I'm doing this very quickly, basically. So it's quite easy for me. It is for me in any way. It's quite easy for us to lose my rhythm. Rather not my rhythm of every stroke I do. It's more stroke, and then obviously flip it, and that's what I kind of like struggle or forget. And if you go into like your 4s and 5 strokes, that's when the heat I can only describe it as a bit of a sting, if you will, because you do it, and then by the time your brain registers the pain or the heat in your thumbs, it's too late, and it's already burnt your thumb, and obviously, and then the blisters start coming up. So it's like kind of, you've got to be wary. It's not like you won't get pain and then think, oh, move my hand away. It's like you'll get pain, and then it's just too late. It's one of those. So I have seen some like little like thumb gloves. I've never used them. I don't know what they're like. It kind of seems a good idea, but I don't know if they would kind of slip off your thumbs. I don't know. Obviously, I've never tried it. I have also seen people that'll put kind of like 2 short dowels at either side, but I don't really see the point in that, because you've still got to put your thumb to flex the card scraper, to get a shaving. So you're still putting your thumbs on it. So I mean, you could possibly wear gloves. I don't like wearing gloves when I'm woodworking. It kind of for me personally, it dulls my senses. It's a little bit hard to describe. It might kind of sound like a little bit hippie, new age, if you will, but kind of when I'm working, it's like there's a lot of my senses are like kind of working at the same time. Obviously, I've got my eyes, which don't work very well, but they are kind of there and they're all working to a degree. Obviously, now I've got my ears, I've got my sense of touch as well, and there's a couple of other things as well. So obviously, I like to be able to feel things. You obviously, because when you're using like the likes of planes or card scrapers, and when you're going through the material, you constantly get feedback. People who have been doing it for a long time will probably know what I'm talking about. When you are doing it, you will get feedback. You get like you'll feel vibrations, you'll feel you'll hear things, you'll see things. There's a lot, but obviously I just don't like wearing gloves for that reason. The next one would probably be fatigue. I've heard a lot of people basically, saying that they get fatigued really easy from using a card scraper. I'm personally not too bad. I'm a manual worker. I've like scaffolded for I think it's coming up to 24 years. So my grip strength's it's ridiculous. It's quite good, and I've always used work with my hands. Obviously, I do a lot of woodworking, so it doesn't phase us too much. I think the only thing that bothers is when I get the blisters. So they don't fatigue too much. I mean, it'll probably bother someone more. I would say someone who works in an office, or maybe a woman. Not being sexist or anything, just women, biologically women tend to have smaller hands, so that could probably be a bit of an issue for women as well, or for men. Obviously working in offices and computers, because they're not, obviously it's not a manual job, so the hands typically won't be as strong as someone who, who's doing it day in and day out sort of thing. So that's something I have heard a lot. Sharpening, I get sharpening a lot. I get people like messaging us and commenting on sharpening. They're like, I don't know how many people like I've heard like say, how do you get that edge? I can never get a good edge. Obviously that's why I made the videos on sharpening the cabinet scraper and the card scraper. So yeah, that's probably one of the bigger issues. People just not being able to get a good edge. Obviously, I've shown the video, or I posted the video on the card scraper. I mean, I don't even know how many views it's had. To be honest, I don't think it's had a lot of views. But I wouldn't mind getting some feedback. It might just be with me, having done that, having sharpened that way for quite some time now, and obviously I sharpen the card scraper up quite regularly, just because it's so quick and easy to do it the way I do it. So I do tend to keep it nice and sharp. So I wouldn't mind to get some feedback off that. I mean, if you are struggling, if you're listening to this and you are struggling with the card scraper, getting it sharp, if you haven't seen how I sharpen them, because it is totally different. It's kind of upside down, if you will, to a certain degree, because obviously I keep the card scraper in my hand and I move the card scraper rather than moving the burnisher, where everybody else who I've seen sharpening a card scraper will move the burnisher while the card scraper is stationary, usually in a vise. So in that sense it is quite peculiar, but as I said, it's nice, quick, easy. There's no jigs. The only thing you need basically is a burnisher. I totally would recommend a burnisher while I'm on the subject. When I first started messing around with card scrapers, I was just using a screwdriver, and I can testify that the screwdriver will not get your shot, will not get the edges that a burnisher will get. Obviously the burnisher is like a hardened steel, so that's kind of why it works better. But obviously at the time I didn't know that, and from what I understand, a lot of people don't know that either. So I would definitely recommend getting some sort of burnisher. Obviously when I got the burnisher, and started, learning how to sharpen them, watching YouTube videos and whatever else, obviously my results did get better. So I would definitely recommend getting some sort of burnisher. So I think that's it for today, guys. Again, I would really appreciate some suggestions. Don't be shy, give us a message or a comment or whatever, I would really appreciate it. And thanks for listening, guys, and until the next time, I shall speak to you later.